All right, so welcome to another episode of the Barron Report. This, of course, is the podcast that talks about all things innovation in food service, restaurant, and hospitality. Today's a special show because you guys, of course, if you're viewing this, you're checking this out on YouTube. So make sure and drop a like, give us a comment below. This is a little different than our normal Barron Reports. This one is actually in studio. Like most of our podcasts, the difference is our guest isn't thousands of miles away. He's literally right in front of me. And with me today, I've got Daniel Cohen, the founder of Bellacosa Wines.
Hey, Paul, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you.
Good to be here.
Yeah. So you've ventured into South Florida right at the beginning of the season, as we call it here in Florida, when all the restaurants are getting the snowbirds coming in. And, of course, that's a perfect time to start doing a wine tour. So is that what brought you into the state of Florida?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys sell a ton of wine here in Florida, and it is a great time to be down here. It's a beautiful state, and that peak season, starting to get all the restaurants and the wine list set up for the season is a real important part of the business, especially in the wine business.
Sure. Dan, your name is like royalty in the wine industry. Let's for some of our listeners maybe don't know about Cohen Wine and kind of the history of what you guys and your family have done in the wine business. Kind of give us a breakdown on that.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique story. My father, Bruce Cohn, was the longtime manager of the classic rock and roll band, the Doobie Brothers.
Yep.
That's what gave him the money to start a family winery that we had in Sonoma, B.R. Cohn, for 40 years. And then we sold the family winery after 40 years, so I needed a job, and the only thing I know how to do is make wine, so Bellacosa was born.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. With some of growing up in the wine business for you, that had to be just a great experience just there in Napa and that whole environment. One of the things, if you could reach back into your history of great wines or great, things that happened there in Napa, because as it was being birthed, really, your father was one of the ones that helped kind of bring it to the forefront. Anything that sticks out in your mind?
Oh man, there was just a ton. I mean, when my father started the winery in, 84, I think there was like 100 wineries in California.
Oh my gosh.
Now there's, I think, over 4,000 or something. So it was a real unique time, It was artistic freedom and creativity and perseverance was kind of the benchmark for winemakers, and there was a strew of celebrity winemakers that came through B.R. Cohn, whether it was Helen Turley or Mary Edwards or Steve McCrosty, which were, firsthand unique experiences for me growing up, being a cellar rat and then having the music tone at the same time, was that kind of wine being like a hit song,
Oh, okay.
And there's a whole story, my father bringing home demo records and whatnot, and having to pick the hit song. And when he managed Night Ranger and Bruce Horn's band Ambrosia in the 80s, when the Doobies broke up from 82 to 88.
Yep.
So wine industries, it's interesting, you've seen it take on so many shapes and accessibility-wise. The key, I think, that came out of that is, Cabernet and Bellacosa being the beautiful thing and the experience of what happens when you drink the wine, but then it's having a Cabernet or a great Cabernet, but a Cabernet in reach.
Yeah.
And that's what's important as I think we see things moving forward in the wine business.
Sure.
Making the best possible wine at the best possible price.
All right, so with Napa kind of being the epicenter of the wine business, obviously we've seen some movement with European wines, Australian, South American. What are some of the things that Bellacosa was trying to do when you guys launched and brought out what you're doing in the market space? What was kind of your focus of, hey, this is our one thing that's going to make us different?
Yeah, well, Bellacosa means beautiful thing. And my whole thing was, sharing wine with friends and family creates wonderful moments and lasting memories. And wine to me is kind of the subtle force that brings everyone together, so that making a Cabernet, and to me, it's got to look like 100, drink like a 50, and be $25.
That's a great one.
It's getting, there could not be a Napa Cab under $50 in 5 years.
Right.
It's, it's so expensive, the real estate, the winemaking practices. And so making an affordable Cabernet in reach that over delivers for the price point, That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've brought some wine on set today, so we have to drink something.
Absolutely.
So what are we going to be pouring here?
First, you're going to have our regular North Coast Bellacosa Cabernet.
Okay.
This is the 2015 vintage.
I like that. Perfect.
Yeah, this is, and then you'll have our Oakville Reserve next.
Okay.
You go ahead. I've had it before.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And there are two different price points on the wine, but I think an important thing is Bellacosa, I really launched nationally. I wanted it by the glass in as many restaurants as possible to get the name out there.
Sure.
And then came back with the Oakville Reserve as a thank you for everybody that supported us on the launch of regular Bellacosa. So making it should complement the meal, but you shouldn't have to have it with food. So making an approachable Cabernet for if you're not a Cabernet drinker, maybe you only drink Pinot. Even I've had some experiences recently with people that say they don't drink red wine and like Bellacosa because of that approachability, because of that longing for the second glass, which complements the meal. And then for the wait staff who are the conduit to the life experience for that individual dining in that restaurant, that go, hey, you like that Bellacosa you're having at the bar? How'd you like to try a bottle of Oakville Reserve?
So this one has, you're right. The body of it, the unique, I think the flow, like you're saying, it's kind of like not just a one glass wine. This is one of those that you could really enjoy all night. So
my key word, I think, was a balance, right?
Okay.
To me, it's got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's not too disjointed. It is not too sweet on the front, not too tannic on the back end, but just that nice overall lush and flavor profile.
Yeah.
There's a lot of disjointed wines out there where it might be too really sweet in the beginning and then maybe real tannic in the end and not has a middle.
Yeah.
This kind of has it's like a sweet melody all the way through.
Yeah, I was looking at your story on the website, which I thought was kind of interesting how you guys have brought, which, by the way, great job on what you guys do. Because so many wine websites are difficult to navigate for just an average chef or a restaurant guy that's trying to put a wine list together. They need to learn fast. What is it that this wine does?
Well, thank you. I wanted, Bellacosa is more of the lifestyle and the experience of what takes place when you're drinking the wine. So I said on the website, I said, listen, I don't want to see a picture of a dude standing in a vineyard.
I like it. Yeah, exactly.
I think the only picture of the dude standing in the vineyard was when I was 3, just to show that I was born and raised in the vineyard.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I didn't realize that you guys had a wine club.
Join the club.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Interesting. Cool. So, all right. So as you are building the Bellacosa brand itself and you're trying to reach kind of this next evolution of chefs and operators that are out there that are really kind of setting the stage for these new millennial diners, which are in many cases experiencing wine for the first time. So you're right. I think the timing is right because it's not always the deep pockets that you're going to be serving that are the masses of the restaurant industry right now. Millennials are pretty much kind of the focus of what everybody's trying to do. Was that part of the strategy with going to market?
Yeah, being the 90% on premise, chefs, they put it out every day, right? And servers, whether they know, and the millennials or whatnot, are that conduit. They are, from my perspective, the bridge that gets it from the bottle to the consumer's mouth, and chefs, they put it out every day. We miss on a vintage though. You're in it for a couple of years, right? You put out a chicken dish, you can make it up the next night if it missed, right? So you got to do one thing great, and then educating the servers.
Yeah,
it should enhance the overall experience.
Sure.
In that restaurant for that chef and for the customer.
How do you go about that? Because that's one of the big challenges of the wine industry, any of the beverage industry, is getting the servers and the staff in a lot of the restaurants and or multi-unit brands. When you look at casual dining, which has started to open up some of these kind of just under upscale dining, kind of experiences. Matchbox is a good example of what they've done. We're seeing more places even like Cooper's Hawk, which is part winery and part restaurant. So they themselves are really, serving this new industry. How are you going about educating those servers and kind of that whole staff approach?
Well, there's two things. One is I pride myself on being the most accessible winery principal out there on the road. And, I say not everybody can make it to the wine country,
right?
But I really like to bring the wine country to them.
Sure.
And so you rely on your wholesale partners, you rely on your marketing team to translate that Bellacosa message into, because there's so many brands, so many wines, and there's very little time, and to actually get that mind share.
Yeah.
But if you can do enough wait staff trainings, whether it's through your marketing arm or your wholesale partners or even myself personally, give them a connectivity to a wine brand that they don't have with any other wine brand.
Yeah.
And that's the key. I mean, I would like the servers to actually hit the table and go, here, try my buddy Dan's wine.
This is exactly like the music industry.
Yeah.
If you think about it, of old.
It is.
How they tried to get their music to the masses was they played one-horse towns.
Right.
And going into these little dusty bars and places that really connected with whoever was hanging out in that area.
And then how do you get the radio play?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that groundswell.
Yeah.
That whole organic.
So you're using music tactics in the wine industry. I've just figured it out.
Yeah. And being on the road 300 days a year.
There you go.
Literally.
Yeah.
I flew in from Denver yesterday.
Yes. So enough of that. If you travel around, you get a chance to get in the ears of chefs and somms and, the GMs of these locations. They start to take a look at what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that when you are working with them, you want them to take away from understanding what Bellacosa is?
Well, I think if you can couple that with the quality of the wine, that's what transcends, right? Yeah. So you do the best you can, right? You make the best possible wine at the best possible price. But until the consumer drinks it and starts sharing it back with you.
Yes.
So now I'm getting posts or I'll get emails or text messages or info on the website, and people will be like, we were out to dinner in LA, we were at this great restaurant, we were going to the theater, we were with all of our friends, we had a bottle of your wine. Your wine was the highlight of our evening. I swear you need to get some new friends or go see a better show. Like, how is the wine the highlight of the evening?
Right, yeah.
But it's those testimonials that come from the marketplace that keep you going on the road.
Yeah. Right? Well, that's good from the consumer standpoint too, because that's going to bring them back to the chef or restaurant that introduced them, to that experience.
What was the beautiful thing that they experienced that night?
Yeah. That's cool. That's a great move. Okay, so you've been a winemaker for quite a while. So when you look at some of the technologies that are happening in the wine business today, the whole approach toward technology being used, strategies towards growing, things of that nature, anything that you're seeing in terms of trends that are really affecting your business?
Well, I mean, it's tough to differentiate yourself. You have to differentiate yourself with a different message out there, because there are large companies out there that throw brands into the marketplace every day. So how do you differentiate yourself and have a different story and a different quality product? So you somewhat have to be a little bit like the fox that goes between the elephant's legs a little bit to get your story and your message and get the consumer to be able to have an affinity for your brand. So there's a lot of, to me, it's been that straight bootstrap mentality and being on the road and just, being and touching as many consumers as I can and being in as many markets as possible so that I can give them access to something either they haven't seen before or haven't had before, because it's a little bit different method.
Yeah. Anything unique about your growing area where you guys are located there?
Yeah, well, what I do is I have long-term contracts with all of our growers. So we take the best from Napa, Alexander, and Sonoma. I think the process in which I go through to ensure that the wine is going to over-deliver for the price point is what's important.
Yeah.
So before we bottle, we do a blind competitive set tasting.
Okay.
Where I take 10 wines in the price point and 6 wines that are double the price. And then I take the best Napa palates that I know and put them in a room together and have them do a blind competitive set tasting.
Just taste it out.
Exactly. And it has to tie with 2 of the wines that are double the price. And once it ties, then I'll identify a vineyard that we'll put an additional line just to spike it, to get it over the top,
right,
just to ensure. So then I know when I go to market that I can, compare and beat most anything in the price point, but that I can stand up with things that are double the price.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is the value add for the restaurant as well.
I think that's a great model too. Was that something you've been working on, or was that something?
That's what I've done since the first vintage of Bellacosa, and we're just rolling into the third vintage.
Okay, great.
I mean, I can tell you that it's great. I can tell you that the vineyard sources, but I'd rather have the best winemaking palates that I know, and then test it against what's out there in the market.
Right. Yeah,
and that's the process.
What you've got, obviously, some of the vineyards there in Napa. I mean, there's some strong competition out of California, and even some of the ranges like Willamette, which is doing some tremendous work with the Pinot side, which is winning a lot of hearts. Kind of your thought on consumers and where those trends are going, because you've seen Pinot that has, Cab has kind of been that one staple that's always such a standard of almost every great menu, whether you're a seafood or a steakhouse, doesn't really matter. A great Cab is always going to be there. Pinot started making this move about a year or a dozen years ago. They got that good market position, and then Rosé comes in. Anything you're seeing from a consumer standpoint in terms of wine trends?
Well, Cabernet just, I believe, surpassed Chardonnay as the most popular. I think what was done with Pinot over a decade ago, and the guys did very, very well, got a lot of people drinking red wine, right? And so I think the wine aisle or the wine menu can be pretty intimidating.
Sure.
What I try to do to tell people and to alleviate a lot of that is to say, look, you know what you like. That's the most important thing. Yeah. So when somebody walks by me, whether I'm at a tasting in a store or at a restaurant, and they say, I don't drink red wine. So then you have to try Bellacosa. And I've had, they go, wow, thank you for finding me a red wine that I like. Or one woman had bought a couple bottles, and then the store called me and said she came back the next day and bought a case, and she didn't drink red wine.
Interesting.
Yeah,
well, you're right. The complexities on a menu can be a little bit overwhelming, especially for someone new to market. Maybe it's their first time they've bought a bottle of wine at a restaurant, and that in itself is usually, hey, this is, I want it to be right. I'm on my first date, or maybe it's, early on in that relationship. So that's a huge, factor in being able to do it. So it's good that you guys are bringing that.
You raise a good point, Paul. That when they have that glass of wine, it may be something they've never heard of, and they're taking a chance on that.
Exactly.
And then when that chance happens,
it's like bam.
Hopefully it over-delivers and takes care of it. Yeah.
And now they're a Bellacosa drinker for life, probably.
God
All right.
willing.
So what am I tasting here? This next one.
That's the Oakville Reserve.
Okay.
That we only made about 400 cases. It was that's 2 years, all new, French oak, year in the bottle. It's 97% cab.
This is great.
I knew you had expensive taste.
This is really good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the.
Is this out of run right now? I mean, you're done with it, or?
Oh no! Well, no, we're just releasing it.
Oh, just releasing it.
Just releasing it. No, you're good. They have.
There's some out there.
They have 14 six-packs in the state, so get it now.
Okay, get it while it lasts. Right. 14 six-packs in the entire state of Florida. That's all you give to us?
No, if you want some more, we can steal it from Texas if you want. They might not need all their.
Easy on the Texas deal. I still have friends there.
Texas is a great state too.
That's a wine. Well, let's talk about that. Wine drinking overall. You're making kind of your countrywide tour here with Bellacosa. What are you seeing state to state in terms of consumption? Is it up where? Where do you feel like the hotbeds are?
Yeah, it's great. You can see. I mean, people are drinking better. People are wanting to drink better. It seems to be. I always say, a lot of people are telling me. They go, look, you're my highest glass pour price, but you're my number one seller. Right, and even in markets that overconsume for the size of the state, it's great. I go everywhere. I'm on the road, close to 300 days a year, if not more.
Wow.
Yeah, and spreading the joy a bottle at a time.
All right, so you got to give me a city.
Give you a city.
Because we're always looking for that trend, that bubble that usually kind of starts to break out. That's really showing some movement in terms of. Think of consumption. So what?
I mean, I was just up in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
And Detroit and outside of Detroit. I was up in Wisconsin. and and they're drinking, $15 glass, no problem. These were markets that were predominantly like, $7.99,
right.
maybe $14.99 is our sweet spot.
Yeah.
But I feel it's like if you build it, they will come. It's interesting. They're like, hey, we don't need any Oakville Reserve, but then you go and they're like, we get 26 packs.
Sure.
Those were things that took place in these markets that we were kicking off recently. And that's the thing. I just want to be the one that wine that you don't drink a glass of. I want to be the one you drink a whole bottle of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I love the fact of what you guys are trying to do in terms of making it approachable. There's a lot of that happening in the culinary industry right now. Chefs who are taking their, full fine dining and bringing it into that kind of approachable, casual, or even fast casual concept. And we've seen some movement of wines making it into those fast casual elements, kind of those upscale, almost counter service type, but yet they're now serving bottled wine. And just started seeing this in some of the markets like out west in Colorado and San Francisco, where that is moving on. And interestingly enough, $11 to $18 bottle or glasses of wine. Still at a price point that is a $9 menu item.
Exactly.
So that's a very interesting dynamic.
That's that people wanting to drink better.
Yeah.
That's whether they serve it for an entree, is that you're giving them that choice. I always say if you pour them a $9 glass, they're drinking a $9 glass. If you pour a $14 glass, a pretty good chance they're going to drink a $14 glass.
Yeah, sure.
But the wine, and that's up to the chefs or who runs the front of the house, is that giving them that access point.
Yeah.
And over delivering for that price.
As you move throughout the industry and you're working with somms and the GMs that are putting these wine lists together for their restaurants or their businesses, is there been any big challenge that they've kind of addressed to you about dealing with the consumer public? Is wine by the glass on the rise? Is bottle sales up? Are they trying to open up the gambit of what's available? What are you seeing?
The most that I see, and I'm out there quite a bit. I don't know who's out there more than I am, but the most one that I hear is, which is interesting, is the reduction in focus on appellation.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Napa Cab, Napa Cab,
right,
Napa
right.
Cab.
Yeah.
When you see these wines that are, if the wine's really, really good and it's over delivering for the price point, that it's good for the consumer. And I've seen that appellation has become less and less important to the restaurants because maybe they're not able to get a Napa Cab for under $20 to pour by the glass.
Yeah.
And so this theme of and their challenge is to find a wine that and the consumer, I don't see them as concerned with, Napa appellated wines.
Yeah.
It's, now, so we're at this kind of momentum shift where if the wine's really, really good and it over delivers for the price point, it doesn't matter where it comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. Which that would kind of lend itself to the strength of where we're seeing some of these hot pockets that are well outside of California that are developing, strongholds on wine menus, that are really all over the place, whether it's South American or European wines or Willamette or you name it.
Opens up all those areas and actually grants the consumer a larger, broader access point.
Yeah.
Even if it's at the highest level, whether it's the huge restaurant chains that are challenged with finding wine, hopefully they are able to come and find something that will replace that at a non-appellation specific, California is probably the most popular appellation next to Napa.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dan, well, it's been great having you here on the Barron Report and learning a little bit about Bellacosa and what you guys are doing in the industry. I love your approach to go to market with kind of the restaurant industry and what you're bringing to the market. This one, definitely my favorite, the Reserve. It's kind of unfair.
It's only 3 times the price. It's okay.
That one,
but thanks for having me,
well
Paul.
worth it, too.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, so for those of you who've been listening in, whether you're checking us out on YouTube or maybe you're over on Spotify or iTunes, make sure and leave a comment below on YouTube and hit us up on iTunes just by maybe giving us 5 stars. That would be really great. You can also check this show out if you are looking at foodabletv.com, and make sure and listen in. Hopefully in 2019, we've got a ton of new content rolling out in our podcast plan, including another wine show. And this is hopefully just the beginning of more wine content right here on Foodable Network. Thanks for listening in on another episode of the Barron Report.